In the summer of 1984, the Merrow family, Stephen, Lorraine, and their 10-year-old daughter Willa packed up their tan station wagon and set off from their home in Waverly, Kansas, for a weekend camping trip in the Ozarks. They left on a Friday morning. Bright skies, full tank, no known enemies, no reason to expect anything but laughter and bug spray. They never arrived. 2 days later, a state trooper patrolling the back roads of Devil's Ribbon Highway, a twisting, two-lane strip infamous for accidents and ghost stories, found skid marks leading into the woods near mile marker 57. No vehicle, no signs of a crash, just tire lines that vanished into soft earth and silence. A search party scoured the area for weeks. Helicopters buzzed overhead. Dogs barked into dense brush. Rangers pushed through brambles and creeks. They found nothing. Not the car, not a bag, not a shoe. The Merrow family was gone. By fall, the case grew cold. Locals speculated wildly. They'd run off to escape debt. They were abducted by someone they trusted. They'd driven off a cliff or been swallowed whole by the forest. Some said the Devil's Ribbon had taken them, like it had taken others before. Because the highway had a history. In 1971, a teenager named Elijah Burke drove into the woods near the same mile marker. Only his engine block was ever found melted and buried in creek mud. In 76, a woman on a late-night walk vanished just beyond mile 60. Her shoes were discovered tied neatly beside a hollow tree the next morning. No blood, no tracks, just her name scratched faintly into the bark. Claire. So when the Merrows disappeared, fear didn't erupt, it deepened. Their home on Sycamore Lane remained untouched for years. Mail piled at the door, grass overtook the porch, Christmas lights sagged into ivy. The swings set out back rusted in the wind. Their story settled like dust on old news clippings, pinned in the sheriff's office. Photos yellowed, voices stopped asking. Until 22 years later, when something surfaced. It was October of 2006. A bow hunter named Eli Graves stumbled upon something odd while tracking deer through Whistler's Grove, a gnarled section of forest that locals whispered about but rarely entered. The trees grew too close together. The birds didn't sing there. The air felt wrong. But Eli wasn't the type to believe in bad energy. He believed in meat, in target lines, in getting the job done, until he saw it. A faded red backpack, wedged in the hollow of a thick sycamore. The zipper rusted, straps frayed. The bag looked old, but not like it had been out there for decades. The position was too clean, too deliberate. Inside, a cracked plastic My Little Pony lunchbox, a melted cherry lip balm, a spiral-bound notebook labeled Willa Merrow, Room 12, Ms. Halpern's class. The handwriting was unmistakably childish, and it hadn't been there the season before. Eli called it in. The bag landed on the desk of Detective Maya Ellison, 41, career law woman, and current head of cold cases for the county. She hadn't been born yet when the Merrows vanished, but she knew the story. Everyone did. Devil's Ribbon had a body count stretching back decades, drownings, crashes, unsolved disappearances. But this was different. The backpack was pristine on the inside. No water damage, no animal bites, no mold or leaf rot. The interior smelled faintly of crayon wax and bubble gum, like someone had packed it yesterday. Maya drove out to Whistler's Grove with a field team. The sycamore hollow was 6 feet off the ground, impossible for a 10-year-old to reach on her own. Eli had to use the barrel of his rifle to hook it down. She ordered a full perimeter search again, this time with fresh eyes, newer dogs, better tech. For 3 days, the teams found nothing, until the 4th. At 6:22 a.m., a deputy radioed in. They'd found a cleared depression beneath the roots of a fallen oak. Not a grave, not quite. More like a cavity. A space where something or someone had once lain curled. Inside the space, 3 items. A small folded paper crane made from yellowed grid paper. A rusted set of car keys marked Ford. And a single human incisor, child-sized, cracked vertically down the center. Maya had forensics rush the items to the lab. The keys matched the Merrow family's missing vehicle. The tooth matched Willa Merrow's dental records, still on file from a routine checkup in 1983. And the paper crane? That wasn't in any police file. But it did appear repeatedly in the margins of Willa's old notebook. Drawn again and again, tiny birds with triangular wings, sometimes flying, sometimes falling. Maya flipped through the notebook pages again. Most were math problems, doodles, stick horses, But halfway through, the handwriting changed, became shakier, more erratic. We hear something at night. It scratches outside the car. Dad says stay quiet. He's going to talk to it. It doesn't sound like a person. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat in her kitchen at 2:04 a.m., a mug of tea long gone cold, staring at the old case photos, the ones that still made seasoned officers shift in their seats. Stephen Merrow, 38, postal worker, Army vet. Lorraine, 36, school librarian, beloved in her PTA. Willa, 10, a girl who loved horses, lollipops, and building paper birds. Good people, normal people, gone without a trace. Except now there were traces, and someone or something had left them for the world to find. But why now? Maya flipped open the final page of Willa's notebook. It was torn, smeared with what looked like dirt, but beneath it, in the same shaky print, it lives in the dark behind the trees. It doesn't like headlights. Mom stopped screaming. Dad is different. I think it wants to keep me. She circled the words. Doesn't like headlights. Then she grabbed her keys. She was going back to the Devil's Ribbon. Alone. The forest around Devil's Ribbon Highway didn't feel like Kansas. Not in the usual sense. It was too thick, too quiet. The trees grew like they had something to hide. No birds, no rustling animals. Just that unsettling kind of silence that buzzed in your ears. Detective Maya Ellison parked her cruiser just past mile marker 57, the same place where the skid marks had been spotted 22 years ago. The same stretch where Stephen Merrow's tire treads disappeared into soft dirt and were never seen again. She stepped out into the night air, boots crunching over dead leaves. Her flashlight swept over the roadside brush. Broken branches, bent saplings. Nothing conclusive, nothing obvious. Maya had come alone, not because she had something to prove, but because she didn't want anyone else to feel what she was feeling. A kind of quiet dread that made you breathe slower. The trees here weren't just old. They were aware. She moved past the tree line and into the woods, her flashlight sweeping across gnarled roots and rotting stumps. She followed a flagged path, remnants of the 1984 search grids, red cloth faded pink with age, a history of looking and finding nothing. Until now, she found herself at the base of the sycamore tree where the backpack had been discovered. The hollow gaped like a mouth. She aimed the beam inside. Empty now, but a faint mark remained where the bag had pressed into the bark, a ghost outline. A breeze passed, cool and damp, and with it came the scent of something sweet, too sweet, like fruit left too long in the sun. Maya froze, and then she heard it, a branch snapping somewhere deeper in the trees. She flicked off her flashlight and crouched low, waiting, listening. Another snap.
Closer.
Then a voice. Didn't touch it, someone whispered. Didn't take the bird. She turned slowly, heart pounding. A figure moved between the trees. Thin, ragged, shirtless, hair matted, eyes glinting like marbles in moonlight. Maya drew her weapon but didn't point it. Who are you? The man blinked slowly. His skin looked raw, scratched, lips cracked. I didn't touch it. I just watched. Watched what? He took a step forward but stopped just outside the beam of her light. The little one. She made birds. Sang to them. Willa Merrow? Maya asked, barely believing it. She sang for days until her mouth stopped working. Maya's throat tightened. Where? He looked toward the north side of the grove. It came from the rocks. Took the mother first, then the voice, then the eyes. What came? The man shook his head so violently his shoulders jolted. Don't ask. Don't shine lights. It doesn't like lights. And just like that, he turned and vanished into the brush. Maya stepped toward where he had been, but something sharp pricked her boot. She looked down. A paper crane sat folded in the dirt, fresh, white, not old and yellowed like the ones from Willa's notebook. This one had been made recently. She picked it up carefully with gloved fingers. Tucked inside the folds was a drawing crayon on notepaper. Stick figures. 3 smiling people, a mom, a dad, a girl. And one tall black shape with no face standing behind them. Its arms long, too long. The paper was signed in crude block letters. W. The next morning, Maya brought the crane and drawing to the county forensics lab. She didn't sleep, didn't shower. She sat in the observation room watching them carefully photograph the fold lines, dust the interior, scan the crayon pigment. No fingerprints, no definitive date. But the paper had no mold, no insect wear, no soil saturation. Whoever left it within the last 48 hours. She returned to the notebook Willa had written in. Most entries were childish, math problems, thoughts about school. But toward the end, the writing had darkened, more desperate. Dad said it wouldn't follow us if we were quiet. Mom is crying into her sweater. It's not helping. Something is breathing outside. It doesn't blink. I know because I watched it for a long time and it didn't blink. Maya leaned back, every inch of her body vibrating with dread. If the entries were to be believed, Willa had survived for days, maybe longer, which meant at some point the family hadn't just vanished, they'd been trapped. Later that afternoon, Maya drove back to Whistler's Grove, this time with a ground-penetrating radar rig in her trunk. She ran a quiet deal with the University Geoscience Department months ago for cold cases like this. It was unmarked, unofficial, but functional. She spent 4 hours dragging the radar across the soil near the sycamore and the depression where the tooth was found. At 6:07 p.m., the scanner pinged. A large metallic object, roughly 6 feet underground. Not near the road, not near the grove. Buried. The radar printout showed a warped oval shape, edges distorted. She marked the spot with orange spray paint and called for a backhoe. At 8:49 p.m., search and recovery unearthed a crushed Ford station wagon, rusted through, sunken deep into the forest floor. The front was caved in. Roots had grown over the hood, but the VIN matched. Stephen Merrow's car. Inside the driver's seat, slumped forward, a skeleton. Male, adult. Seatbelt twisted across the ribcage, the jaw missing. Lorraine's remains were found in the back seat, her hand clutching a torn sweater, her skull fractured. But Willa's seat was empty. The rear passenger door hung open, and carved deep into the inside panel, over and over, were 3 words. It keeps her. The body of Stephen Merrow was positively identified by dental records within 24 hours. Lorraine's came back slower, only fragments of bone and a partial pelvis were intact. What was left of her had been tangled in the back seat frame, ribs cracked inward, arm twisted unnaturally behind her. The forensics team theorized she may have died on impact, but the medical examiner wasn't convinced. There's trauma here, she told Maya, but some of it, it's inconsistent with a crash.
What do you mean?
The examiner hesitated. It looks like something tried to pull her through the seat before she died, almost like she was being dragged while still buckled. Maya said nothing. Because she had seen something that morning the forensics team hadn't yet cataloged. A child's shoelace pink with yellow stars caught in the hinge of the rear passenger door. It had been tied from the inside, knotted into the door's lock mechanism. Willa had tried to keep something out, or keep something in. That evening, Maya drove home and spread every single page of Willa's notebook across her dining table. She created a timeline, labeled every shift in handwriting, every change in tone. The first half was all playfulness and routine, but page 28, something broke. It waited outside the car last night. Daddy didn't come back. Mom's not talking. I think she sees it now. The birds stopped singing. I miss the birds. Page 29 was blank. Page 30 had one sentence, scrawled over and over again. It lives in the ground. The next morning, Maya met with Eli Graves, the hunter who'd found the backpack. They sat outside a diner on Highway 60. Eli drank black coffee and kept glancing toward the woods like they might overhear him. I don't go out there anymore, he said. You told the deputies the backpack wasn't there last year? Not a chance, he replied. I hunt the grove every October. I know that tree. I'd have seen it. Then someone planted it, or something brought it back. Maya raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Eli leaned closer. My dad was a surveyor. He worked this land in the 60s. Said there were places where compasses spun and radios went quiet. Said the air would hum sometimes like bees in your jaw.
He paused.
They found a preacher's car out here once, door open, Bible on the dash. Nobody inside. That was 62. We don't talk about it because it don't help. Maya opened her notepad. Do you remember anything about the Merrows? Only that they didn't belong out here, Eli said. Not them, not that girl.
Why?
Because she saw it. Back at the station, Maya reviewed every missing persons report within a 10-mile radius of Devil's Ribbon from 1960 to 2006. 27 disappearances. Some were hikers, others were hunters. 3 were children, 2 were park rangers. And in all of them, there was a common detail buried in the witness interviews. An odor before vanishing. Sweet, sickly, like ripe fruit or rotting flowers. Willa had described it too. It smells like peaches when it gets close. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she read that again. She couldn't shake the scent. She'd smelled it herself at the base of the sycamore. She returned to Whistler's Grove that night with one purpose: to find the stone structure mentioned in Willa's notebook. The place under the roots, where it hums, where it dreams. She walked the path alone, marking her route with chalk, this time bright red. It took over an hour before she found it. A low mound of earth barely visible from the path, covered in moss, surrounded by trees that leaned away from it. At its center, a crude stone well, sealed with a rusted metal grate. Maya crouched beside it and shined her flashlight through. At first, she saw nothing. Then, movement. The light caught on something wet and pale. It shifted, then froze, then blinked. Maya gasped and fell backward. But not before she saw what was scrawled inside the rim of the well, in red. Keep her safe. She called for backup, sent coordinates, marked the area. But when the recovery team arrived 2 hours later, the stone well was gone. Not filled in, gone. The mound had collapsed. The area looked like fresh forest floor, untouched. Maya insisted they dig. They found no stone, no grate, no disturbance. Just a small paper crane, half buried in the moss. The next morning, Maya submitted her full report. But it was clear no one at the county believed her. The well was dismissed as a misidentified sinkhole. The blinking object chalked up to animal reflection. The phrase? Probably a vandal from years back. Maya didn't fight it, because she didn't care what they believed anymore. She knew what she'd seen, and she knew Willa Mero might still be alive. Not just a memory, but a prisoner. That night, her phone buzzed at 1:12 a.m. No caller ID, just one text message. A photo. Blurry, grainy, taken at night, but unmistakable. A girl no older than 10 standing barefoot in the woods, hair matted, dress torn, cradling a paper crane in her hands, eyes glowing slightly in the dark. Captioned with one line, "She never left." Maya stared at the image glowing from her screen. A girl barefoot, dirt-smeared, small frame cloaked in shadow, stood in the woods holding a paper crane. Her eyes reflected the camera flash with an eerie white gleam. There was no timestamp, no location metadata. Just the words, "She never left." Maya called the department's cybercrime unit at 1:15 a.m. They couldn't trace the source. It had been sent through a spoofed international relay encrypted, untraceable, possibly from a satellite phone or a burner. Still, the photo didn't feel fake. The lighting, the clothing, the background. Something about it whispered truth. The next morning, Maya drove straight to Waverly's town archive, a squat brick building older than any person who worked there. She requested access to land deeds, utility maps, and pre-1950s construction records. She focused on Whistler's Grove.
And there it was.
In the 1937 soil survey, a property called the North Orchard Estate, marked as abandoned since 1912. No house, just one handwritten note on the map. Root cellar west drainage tunnel. Keep covered. Unsafe. She traced the old survey coordinates to a place just west of where the Merrow's car was buried. She loaded her flashlight, 2 sets of batteries, a flare gun, her service weapon, and a collapsible trowel. She didn't call backup because she didn't trust anyone to believe her anymore. Whistler's Grove was still. Even the trees seemed hesitant. She reached the survey point in under an hour, and then she saw it. A dip in the earth, overgrown with moss and mushrooms, half hidden by a fallen cedar. Beneath the roots, a patch of stone slab unnatural in shape, almost rectangular. Maya cleared the earth slowly, carefully. It took 20 minutes to reveal the outline of a hatch wooden frame, iron riveted, with a rusted pull ring. She hesitated, hand hovering over the latch. Then she pulled. It groaned, wood cracked. A rush of warm, fetid air escaped like breath from a tomb. Steps led down into darkness. The flashlight cut through the air in sharp beams. Dust particles floated like ash. The stairs descended farther than expected, easily 30 feet down. The walls were stone and root-woven. Moisture beaded in corners. Old timber support beams arched overhead like a forgotten spine. At the base, a corridor, carved, narrow. Maya stepped in. There were symbols etched into the walls, some geometric, others more like stick figure drawings. One depicted a large figure standing over a child. Another showed birds in a circle. Farther in, the tunnel opened into a chamber. Maya paused at the threshold. A bedroll lay in the corner. A rusted mirror, a cracked plastic pony, and taped to the wall dozens of paper cranes. Some fresh, some yellowed. All folded carefully, methodically, ritualistically. Each one had a single letter written on it. Together they formed rows, columns, sentences. Maya stepped closer and read, "He is still here. I told you I wasn't done. Mommy tried to leave. Now Mommy sleeps. She turned slowly, and then she saw it. A girl standing just beyond the circle of light. Not 10 anymore. 17 or 18. Pale, dirty, hair long and matted, face thin and unreadable. She held a crane in her hand. "Willa," Maya whispered. The girl didn't respond. Maya slowly holstered her gun. "I'm here to help you. My name is Maya. I'm a detective. We've been looking for you." Silence. Willa's head tilted. Then she said softly, "You shouldn't be here." Maya stepped forward slowly. "Why?" "Because it followed me when I ran, and now it's awake again." Maya's flashlight flickered. No wind, no wires, it just flickered. Then dimmed. Then shut off completely. Darkness swallowed them. And in that blackness, Maya heard breathing. Not from Willa, from behind her. She turned and fired the flare. The red glow lit up the chamber in a burst and revealed the thing. Too tall, limbs too long, head hunched unnaturally. Its body was not solid, more like bark twisted over wet cloth. Its face was wrong, too smooth, too still. It recoiled at the light, hissing like a wound opening. Maya grabbed Willa's hand. "Run!" They bolted through the corridor. The creature gave chase, its movements erratic, jerking like a film skipping frames. Willa moved fast despite her condition, barefoot but sure-footed. Behind them, the walls shuddered. The timber supports cracked. Dirt showered from above. "Left!" Willa shouted, voice hoarse. They veered into a narrow shaft. Willa clearly knew the tunnel better than anyone. A second stairwell loomed. They climbed. Maya kicked open a second hatch above this one, made of rusted wire mesh, and buried beneath a thicket. They burst into daylight. The sun was just rising. The creature did not follow. It stopped at the hatch edge, trembling, retreating as the light grew stronger. And then it vanished back into the dark. They collapsed on the forest floor, gasping. Willa curled into a fetal position, shielding her face. Maya reached for her radio. "This is Detective Ellison. I need medical at grid 6.67 by 4.93 now. Victim located. Repeat. Victim located, alive." The voice on the other end squawked in disbelief. But Maya didn't wait to explain. She looked at the girl now, curled, eyes clenched, whispering. "I told it not to hurt her," Willa mumbled. "I told it I'd stay." Maya reached out gently. "You're safe now." Willa shook her head. "No, it only sleeps in the daylight, and it's still hungry." Willa Mero was taken to County Memorial under heavy sedation. She was malnourished, dehydrated, covered in shallow scars. Her feet were raw from years of walking barefoot in the stone and soil. But she was alive. The girl who'd vanished in 1984 was now 28 years old. No one could understand how she'd survived, or why she hadn't aged the way she should have. Her teeth showed signs of childhood development, but little past adolescence. Her voice was still high-pitched, her hands still small. Trauma, the doctor said. A developmental arrest, malnutrition, isolation. But Maya had seen what lived beneath those trees. And she didn't believe it was just biology. The station was in chaos. Reporters swarmed. National headlines screamed, "Missing girl found after 22 years. Devil's Ribbon yields victim and more questions." The girl who lived in the roots. But the real story never made the press. The creature, the paper cranes, the breathing tunnel, the thing that stopped when the sunlight hit it. They left all of that out. The official story was, Willa was kidnapped, held in an underground bunker. Her captor, unknown. Deceased, most likely. Case closed. But Maya kept the real files in her own drawer, far from public eyes. Because she knew something no one else did. It wasn't over. On her third visit to Willa's hospital room, Maya brought the old notebook. Willa was staring out the window at the trees beyond the parking lot. She didn't blink often. "Do you remember this?" Maya asked, laying it gently beside her. Willa didn't answer. But her hand moved slowly toward the notebook. She flipped through the pages carefully, silently, until she found one near the end. The one with the phrase, "It lives in the dark behind the trees." She pressed her palm flat against the page, then looked up. "It let me leave." Maya leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Willa's eyes welled. "It wanted someone else." Maya felt something hollow open in her chest. "Who?" Willa looked at her, not with fear, but with warning. "It needs someone to remember it. That's how it stays awake." Maya left the hospital disturbed. That night, she began having dreams. Willa in the woods, standing at the edge of the sycamore tree. A paper crane in her hands. A voice whispering, "She left. You look too long." Maya stopped sleeping. She rechecked the tunnel location. It was gone. The land had settled like nothing was ever there. Except the birds never came back. And the trees leaned differently. 3 weeks later, Willa vanished again. No forced entry, no security footage. Her hospital gown was found on the floor beside her bed. No note. Only a single crane sitting in the chair beside the window, folded with surgical precision. Inside, in tiny print, she promised. Maya drove straight to Whistler's Grove. She found the same depression in the earth. This time she didn't wait. She began digging with her bare hands. Hours passed, blood mixed with dirt. Her fingers tore open. But finally wood, a hatch, exactly where it had been before. She opened it. And this time the stairs were lit. Softly, dimly, like lanterns had been burning for 100 years without running out of fuel. She stepped down. The tunnel was exactly the same. Symbols, dust, damp air. But the chamber had changed. There were no cranes on the wall. Just one placed at the center on a stone pedestal. And beside it, Willa asleep. Her eyes fluttered. Her lips moved. Maya stepped forward. Willa didn't wake. She was whispering, repeating something over and over. One must stay, one must stay, one must stay. And then she stopped. Maya looked around the chamber. It wasn't empty. The creature was behind her. But it didn't move. It just waited. Maya understood. A bargain. The first time it took Stephen. The second, Lorraine. The third, Willa. Now it needed someone new. Not for pain, not for blood. Just presence. A keeper of the memory. The forest didn't feed on flesh. It fed on remembrance. Maya sat down beside Willa. She placed her badge on the stone. Then gently she shook the girl's shoulder. Go home. Willa stirred, opened her eyes. Saw Maya, knew what it meant. Tears fell. No, she whispered. But Maya smiled. It's okay, you kept your promise. Now I'll keep mine. Willa stood and walked up the stairs. Sunlight poured in. As she reached the top, she turned one last time. Maya waved. Then the hatch closed. Weeks later, the hospital received a visitor. Willa Merrow. Clean, healthy, smiling faintly. She told them she'd been found by hikers, had no memory of what happened. A psychologist diagnosed her with dissociative amnesia. No one questioned it. She was placed in a recovery program, given a new identity, a fresh start. And in her new apartment, on her new desk, she kept just one item from her past, a folded paper crane, and beside it, a notebook. On the first page, she wrote, There's a girl in the forest. She remembers so we don't have to.